Hello friends, it's my proud privilege to introduce Brinda Somaya, an architect and an urban conservationist. With a Bachelor of Architecture from Mumbai University and a Masters of Arts from Smith College, USA, she started her firm Somaya and Kalappa in 1978 in Mumbai. Starting work from a small gardener's shed, today her practice has over 70 plus people and over 200 projects to her credit. Over the last 4 decades, she has merged architecture, conservation, and social equity in projects ranging from institutional campuses and rehabilitation of an earthquake-torn village to the restoration of an 18th century cathedral. Her philosophy, the architect's role is that of a guardian. Hers is the conscience of the built and unbuilt environment. This belief underlines her work that spans large corporates, industrial and institutional campuses, and extends to public spaces, which she has rebuilt and sometimes reinvented as pavements, parks, and plazas. Some of her award-winning campuses include the Tata Consultancy Services, Banyan Park, Mumbai, Nalanda International School, Vadodara, and Zenza Technologies, Pune. She is the recipient of several award-winning projects and has an honorary doctorate from her alma mater, Smith College. In 2014, she was awarded the Indian Institute of Architects Baburao Matre Gold Medal for Lifetime Achievement, the UNESCO Asia Pacific Awards for Cultural Heritage Conservation, also the Award of Distinction from the Vikram Sarabhai Library, Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad in 2019, European Architects Forum Award, winner of the new Nalanda School campus in Baroda, the first woman to have won the Weinberger Golden Architects Award for Lifetime Achievement, and many, many more awards. 2 of her projects were also nominated for the Aga Khan Award. She was chosen as one of the 100 global public interest design persons working at the intersection of design and service globally in 2013. A chairperson of the Board of Governors, School of Planning and Architecture, Vijayawada, she's also on the board of Lafak Holcim Foundation for Sustainable Construction, Zurich, Switzerland. Presently, she is the AD, White Professor at Large at Cornell University, USA. Her firm has won several competitions for the restoration and upgradation of the historic Louis Khan buildings of Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. Brinda Somaya has actively been involved in participating in her country's and city's development. She is the founder trustee of the Hekar Foundation, which has brought out several publications on heritage and architecture, and also chaired a conference and organized a seminar exhibition on the work of women. Covering 4 decades of her work is a book that she has brought out, Works and Continuities. Brinda Somaya. So very warm welcome to you, Brinda, on the program of the Pioneers of the Smart World. It's such an honor to have you on this program. Really, it's been my personal desire to have a conversation with you, understand your life, your journey, and of course, I have always had you as a role model in my life, not just admiring the way you worked and your creativity, also your style, your personality. My God, there's so much of a fabulous package that you are in this hugely creative and competitive design world.
Oh,
Thank you.
You're embarrassing me, but thank you.
No, I mean every word, Brinda. Tell me something in this whole journey of almost 4 decades. You have seen so many crises happening in this world, you know, with tsunamis and earthquakes and what have you, and now the pandemic. But looks like you've come out a winner every time. What is the secret? How is this happening that some people are just, they just break down, and others like you break records?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer, but I'll say what I can. I don't think life is just a straight line. It's always going to have its ups and downs and curves, and with each difficulty comes opportunity. I don't think I necessarily look at it that way, but looking back in time, it definitely works out that way. And strength, of course, has to come from an inner strength and a belief in yourself and the people around you, that one will come through every storm. I think that goes without saying. For instance, the earthquake that took place in Bhuj and in Mumbai in 2000 led me to restore and rebuild an entire village. And that was such an amazing experience for me, because what that taught me throughout my practice was the importance of listening to people, of understanding what it is they want, and what is really our role as architects. Are we just peripheral to society? Are we part of society? How do we work with people? It's not just about being stars and building buildings for your own self. But it's really, for me, it's been very much a community and people-centric profession. That's how I feel.
Badli, a village project which happened after the earthquake, was something that happened because of the earthquake. Maybe a project like that you would have never taken or done had the earthquake not happened. So what was the learning there, and how do we learn and grow from a project like that?
Well, I always say that difficult times bring out the best in people. They bring out the most creative solutions. They bring out participation, working together. And that's what this did, because it wasn't just rebuilding the village, but it was revitalizing the village, of giving people there a sense of positivity, because a sense of optimism that they can go on with their lives after such a devastating situation. And so we look at our role as architects, whether we're barefoot architects or whether we're high-tech architects, that what really is our role? Our role is to work with society, with people, and then come out with what we think will be the most creative and best solutions. And
so did you give them the things to create themselves? Do they have to build their own homes? How did the project go? Tell us a little about it.
So the most important thing was I had a client for whom I did a lot of other work, in fact, industrial work. But the client is very philanthropic, and immediately when this earthquake took place, I got a call the next day saying, Brinda, we have to go to Kutch and find a village that has been, devastated. And so we went very soon. It was very cold. It was January. And most of the villages that had a Hindu majority were taken by Hindu NGOs. It was a Muslim majority, often Muslim NGOs. So we found a village that had a different type of population diversity, which was called Badli. It was a wonderful village. And we took it up. It was totally devastated, 90%. And what I found when I went there and was talking to the people was, unlike what the government was doing in many situations, like in Latur, which was the easiest way, if you ask me, was they would find a piece of open land and build repetitive housing and move the people there. We found when we talked to the villagers that they did not want to move out of their piece of land. This was their village. They wanted to be back in their piece of land next to their old neighbors, and they were willing to sit out in the cold if required till their houses were built. So it was listening to them. And then, of course, we did a full survey of the entire village, understood the relationship of the different communities in the village, who wanted to be next to each other. We didn't try to, disrupt their social system, but we tried to open it out in subtle ways, because you can't change people overnight. That was one thing. And the second thing, what we did is we wanted to bring back a sense of importance to the villagers themselves, because they were quite depressed. So we told them we would give them the materials required for the housing free, but they had to rebuild the houses themselves. And I worked out 3 alternative solutions: 1 room, 2 room, and 3 room. And they could, depending on what they had, they could then choose one of those. Sat with the village panchayat, who was a woman. So we were really a women's brigade, frankly, in the project in many ways. And then we finally got the people of the village themselves to rebuild by paying them for their labor. So not only did they have a sense of achievement, they earned and they rebuilt their lives, and we gave them the materials. And then we rebuilt the school, we restored the temple, the masjid. Water, of course, gets saline during an earthquake. So tanks of water, we planted a lot of trees. So there were many other things that we did. But this was the main important thing that we did.
So you taught them how to fish and not give them the fish. And I guess that is what we need to look at, how to learn from a situation and come out and grow stronger out of it.
I think we were fishermen together.
Okay, wonderful. How about the current pandemic? I mean, what are we to learn from it, and how do we look at the silver lining here?
Well, there have been, of course, many positives and negatives as well. I think we all know that the biggest take from this pandemic is the role that technology has played. What would have taken maybe 5 years to happen has happened in 2 years. And the use of technology to connect with each other, to connect with clients, to connect with projects, that's made us think differently, because now we know that perhaps we can get the best talent from all over the country. We don't actually have to have everyone physically present within the studio. If we want, we can work with consultants from all over the world. So it sort of globalizes and makes the world a smaller place in many ways because of technology and connections, without doubt. But there have been issues in the sense that we as architects, we also need to see each other. We need to brainstorm together. We need to talk about projects together, and that we missed. It was very difficult to do new creative conceptual work together on the computers separately. It was easier when a project was, say, halfway through and we had to continue it. But new projects that we just got at that time when the pandemic started and the client wished to take it further, those were the very challenging situations, trying to come up with creative solutions distantly, because we work in a very democratic way in my studio. Nandini and I believe in brainstorming and hearing others. I always believe that design is a process. It's a solution that comes out of many minds working together, and it's certainly not a single person solution.
Absolutely. But you see, the way things are and the way the new normal is, work from home seems to become like the norm now. So, I guess we will have to start thinking in terms of even ideating from the very beginning of a project from a similar situation, which is work from home. However, I don't know how much of this work from home in the Indian context can really work. Do you think, Brinda, we can actually do everything work from home where even with my small team of designers where I've given them laptops, they don't seem to be able to deliver the kind of results that I would have probably expected if we were together physically. What do you think is the solution to that?
Well, temporarily, I think a hybrid solution may work. For instance, we closed down our studio really for a very short time, and when we could open it earlier this year, we opened it, and we were actually running at full capacity until just now, when again, because of the Omicron variant, we've had to sort of again go back to hybrid. I am very clear in my mind that with my people, certainly here in Mumbai, we need to come to the studio to work. There might be many issues. Some are actual physical issues. Mumbai is a very expensive city. People's apartments are very small. We have 3 generations living in an apartment. We have children not going to school. So we can't compare ourselves with the West, where, you have nuclear families and big homes, and the children are in one room, wife is in one room, husband is in one room. That's not Mumbai. That's not India. So we have to be very realistic, and we found that people wanted to come back. There was no doubt, at least in SNK, everybody really wanted to come back.
what is this whole thing about SNK and people together and the joy of working? How do you manage to do this over the years with new people coming, young minds, young ideas? What is the success story here?
Well, I hope it's a generosity of spirit that runs through the entire SNK family. We really believe that in teaching, people who come, we are not really worried whether they stay or whether they go. When they are with us, it's a teaching process. They're part of us. It's a learning process. And we find that our attrition rate is very low. We've got people who have been with us from my own personal assistant of 28 years or 30 years to many, many senior architects who have been with us, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years. I think it's a sense of their worth. We believe in each individual. We respect them, and we believe that they contribute towards the success of our projects, and common value systems, common ethics that we work with, a uniformity of that. I think some of those things are very, very important.
Beautifully put. Sorry, you were saying something, but I think you missed out on a very important point where I think it's your humility and the way it translates, I guess, to the other people that you work with in your team. Also, actually, is probably a very important reason for the success of your team and you being together and doing such wonderful work.
But, thank you for that. But it's something that it's not something that I work towards. It's just something I believe that all of us really are. And I think that comes from the values, right from my grandfather to my parents. My father always told me that you have to always remember that you must talk to people who can't answer back or who are not think they're the same position or situation as you are. You have to talk to them and behave to them in a much better way than you need to people who are, might be your boss, because they're the ones who cannot answer back to you. And he ingrained that into us, right from, when we were children, the way we were brought up, the way we had to treat people around us. So it wasn't something that was consciously done. It was, you finally lead by example. Mm-hmm. And I think we all came from large families in the sense, grandparents, summer holidays in Bangalore with all my cousins and aunts and uncles. And then, of course, my own parents. So I think generations of believing that whatever we can contribute to society, it's just done quietly. There's no hoo-ha about it. The strength comes from within one. And we're just like anybody else.
Wow, that's wonderful to hear. But here I would ask you, Brinda, you were very lucky to have educated parents who let you do what you wanted to. You traveled with them and looked around this country, and you were pretty much did what you wanted to do. I don't think that's true for a lot of people, even in the educated parents who probably, a doctor's son or daughter is expected to become a doctor, a lawyer's son or daughter is expected to be a lawyer. And if they want to become a musician or an artist or a theatre person, it is still not looked up to, or, their expectations are so high from them. What do you have to say for people who want to break the, norm of being part of the so-called respectable profession as it is, treated as, and set out on their own and do their own thing, especially in the creative world?
Well, I think you have to have determination and courage. You have to believe in yourself. I remember I wanted to apply to something called the American Field Service Scholarship when I was 16 years old, to go to America alone for a year. We're talking about this 1960s. And my parents were not, overly excited about sending a young girl to the United States at that time. But I just wanted to go. I was passionate about it. And I think you have to have that passion and belief in yourself, and then you are able to carry people along with you. And when I reached the United States, I was sent to the southern United States. When I reached New York, here I was a very young girl. And the person who was talking to me said, "Do you know where you're going? You're going to a part of the US where the school you are attending has just been desegregated this year. And this is the first time non-white students are being allowed into that school." And I panicked, I said, "How can I go to this place?" And, but these are the situations that strengthen you, that make you stronger, and give you the courage to go through different things in life. I mean, you see, different people have different inner strengths, and nothing is easy. Life, if people say that life is just one easy walk, it's not. But I think so much depends on your attitude towards life, that if you take it that this is what has come to you, this is what you have to go through, and be positive about it, see how you can handle it. I think these are some of the things that build up strength.
We only know the beautiful side of your life, everything going so beautifully well. What have been some challenges? Share it with us. It would be lovely to hear it from you. As we all have struggles. We've all had challenges. Something that has created an impact in your life, and you've come out strong. You've learned your lessons from those. Probably, I could call them even mistakes.
So when I first began, we're talking about the late 70s, young sari-clad woman in her 20s trying to say that she's an architect, and not anybody's, father's not an architect, brother's not an architect, husband's not an architect, son is not an architect. So who's doing, who's running the studio? So, it looking back, I guess it may not have been that easy, of course. But I think living and working in a city like Mumbai made a big difference. It was such a cosmopolitan city at that time, and I was privileged in many ways to be able to get small work first, and then one thing led to another. But it was, I think, what was lonely was it was a very lonely 10 years. You see, I never had any architectural mentors. You hear many people talking about having worked with A, B, or C, and how much they influence their work. So it was quite a lonely 10 years for me from 1980 to 1990. Perhaps looking back, I don't know if I'd had architectural mentors whether I would have been different, but I had many people whom I looked up to with family and friends. And I think that courage came. So it was lonely, but I had the courage, I think, to build. And I didn't have any business plan or any ambition that this is what I was going to do. I just loved what I did. I was just passionate about it, and I enjoyed it. It was my life, So for 10 years, I was just happy building. Of course, there were difficulties. I had to learn so many things the difficult way. And so it was in 1990 that I was first invited by Professor Madhav Devbhakta and his wife. I will never forget that. They invited me for to give a talk in Nagpur, the Malwanka lectures. And that was the very first time I've been invited to give a lecture on my work. And I think that was a real important step for me, because then I realized that maybe I had, built up a body of work. Difficulties come in many ways in projects, difficulties in, the IIM recently, which I won the competition to restore all the buildings. The clients have taken a decision about what they're going to restore and what they're not. You may have read about the controversy over there. So those are difficult situations which are not easy to go through. The pandemic has caused a slowdown on a couple of our projects, which have caused difficulties for the clients, but we have to bear the brunt of it in many ways. So projects are not easy, and I think that's what architecture is all about. In many ways, you always think, many people think of it as just a creative, glamorous profession. That first you have the idea, and then the project is over, and you have the completed building or the completed whatever you're going to do. But what about all the in-between hard work, the difficulties, the challenges? They're enormous in an architectural project. And that's never discussed. It's just the beginning and the end.
Absolutely.
So,
those are stories, and that's what, people have a very glamorous, as you rightly said, image of what architecture is all about. They would see this beautiful project that's shaped up, or a lovely restoration or a conservation project that you have done, and they would see the end result. And they would also see this beautiful, gorgeous Brinda Somaya in her gorgeous saris and her jewelry. So, there is a lot of glamour, so to say, attached. But the reality, the ground realities, as you just mentioned, are very different. To be working in spaces which are, breaking down and hot and humid and dusty. And that's where, your willpower, your passion comes through. And especially when I see your restoration projects, Brinda, of course, studying the projects, getting into, research and all, that's important. But I see a lot of emotion that needs to be also is attached to it. What kind of emotion do you think, as creative people, not just as architects, as just people of the world, of citizens of a country, we need to be sensitive in terms of just, having that restorative or the conservation mindset for anything that we do? Why is it only expected from architects such as you and others?
Absolutely. There's so many sayings that if you don't remember and save and preserve your past, then where is the future? We all know that. And this sort of conservation of your past, a sense of place, a sense of time, a sense of heritage, it cannot be just for architects. And we see that very much in our city of Mumbai, where we have many NGOs and many activists working very hard to preserve not just the architectural heritage, but the cultural heritage, the natural heritage of what we have in India so much. I mean, I remember I was on a committee once for Hyderabad where we actually made the rocks into a natural heritage and needed to be preserved, the beautiful Hyderabad rocks and things like that. So it's not something that only architects can do. You have to have society, civil society as a large, believing in it and believing it has a value more than just a building. It is much more than that. The building itself might have the embodied energy, but one has to believe in something like a circular economy, where nothing should be wasted, where everything has to come around and be reused, rebuilt, recycled, retrofitted. Because otherwise, the climate change is something that's going to hit us all enormously. So we have to understand that we don't just have to preserve, very important and heritage buildings. We have to preserve ordinary buildings also. We have to recycle them, see how they can be reused. The circular economy is all about that. And that's what, it's not just sustainable. There has to be a circular economy where nothing gets wasted. And that's how we look at every project that we do.
It's such a beautiful thought about the circular economy, but the economy, when we talk about the nation at large, somehow the creative people just become part of the peripherals of, this whole growth of the nation. The economy does play a very important part. How can designers, architects, creative people become more part of the system and become, actually drive this whole system of growth of the nation?
Well, like I've said, the only politician we've had who was an architect was Pilu Modi, and nobody after that. Whereas our political groups are full of lawyers, etc. Why are there no architects? Why are there no creative people? Unless we have political and bureaucratic support and will and a presence in that, we are always going to be peripheral and we're always going to be inconsequential. This change has to come, and this is the change I hope that young people will bring in, that they will understand that if they do not have a say in actual policy making, a say right at the top in Delhi where you are sitting now, we are not going to make that difference. And just like we have a regular constitution, I believe we should have an ecological constitution where we should talk about the environment and make it law. It's got to be something that cannot be broken at anybody's will and pleasure. These are the things that are going to save us. And these are the things that young people have to bring in. They have to understand that architecture is a very diverse profession. It's fine, you have some beautiful buildings. Of course, that's important. But our role goes way beyond buildings. That's the only way we're really going to make an impact on our country.
How fabulously put. Ecological constitution, my goodness, this is very interesting. Is it about, when I have this during the pandemic, started enjoying my garden more than ever, I realized there are birds and butterflies, which I have never appreciated in so many years. I'm sure they would have been around always, but life was always about running in and out and just making sure the garden looks good and watered. What kind of ecological constitution are we talking about here? I mean, what would be the rules like?
I think we have to understand that the world is totally connected in every way. And we as architects have a very important role, because if you look at statistics, almost 70% of the pollution that the world is now having to endure comes from construction. All right? So if that is the case, then whose responsibility is it? It's our profession's responsibility. Cars contribute, maybe 18, 20%. There are other small contributors. But the biggest guilty party is the construction industry, of which we are a part. So what are we doing? What are we all doing to change this?
We don't need just young people to bring these changes, Brinda. We need people like you with your experiences to actually come into the forefront and to be able to tell us and guide the government and the other stakeholders to take the right path. I think time has come where we really need to collaborate, come together as a community and, create a voice that can be heard. I think that is so important. And that is something we actually need to work together in a very collaborative manner. What do you have to say for that?
You're absolutely right. There has to be a collective voice. And I think in many parts of the world that is happening. In India, there are many, many groups, how they're going to work together, how people are going to bring them together. We're a very, very large country. We have a very diverse geography, diverse population, religion, food, culture, customs. We're like as large as Europe is without Russia, with as many languages and ethnicities, etc. So, we're not going to be able to, one group of people is not going to be able to do it together. But if each one of us contributes, and if we have the time, I always like to tell this little story. At one of my lectures, I wanted to young people, I talked about a folk story and how there was a big fire in a forest and all the animals ran away, tiger and the deer, everyone ran away. And the only little thing that was left was a tiny little bird. And the bird was flying to a little stream nearby, getting some water in its beak and flying back and trying to put out this fire. And then the tiger said, you're never going to be able to do this, carrying this little bit of water in your beak and trying to put out the fire. So the bird said, well, at least I'm doing my bit. And I said this story at the end of one of my presentations. The next day, my email was flooded with emails from many, many young people. And they said, ma'am, there's a second half to this story. It's an old folk story, but you only told the first half. So I said, what was the second half? They said the second half was that the gods were watching from above. And they were watching this little bird flying up and down, carrying water in its beak, trying to put the fire out. And the gods were so moved that they began to cry. And when gods cry, their tears come down as rain, and the rain put off the fire. So each one of us has to do our bit for our country to make this change and to bring in a circular economy to save our country for our children and our grandchildren as well.
How beautiful. We don't then need to make the gods cry. We just need to be happy and be laughing with everybody and everybody around us and spread the happiness. So beautifully put. Love the story. But this interview will not be complete till I ask you questions about how much you have done for the women in this country, women in architecture and women otherwise. Your program on, architects, women architects in 2000, another one in women in design in 2020. Tell us a little more about that, please.
So when I was expecting my first child, I was building a sort of a small building in Chembur. And I was 9 months and I had to climb to the terrace to look at the concreting. And my mother was really worried. She said, "How will you do it? I think I'll come and sit with you downstairs while you climb up." I said, "Don't worry." So anyway, I climbed up to the top and there were 5 women who were standing there. And they looked at me with such empathy, but with such pride as well. And I looked at them struggling with just carrying the concrete, obviously getting less salary than the men on the same project. And that's the time I decided that we were all part of the same. I was part of them and they were part of me. And I had to do something for them as well. So for me, it became a very, very important thing. Women in construction, for years, I introduced it into my tender documents, into my specifications, that they had to have the contractor had to have proper rooms for them. There had to be an electric bulb. That's all I could ask for, one bulb of electricity. I had to ask for special toilets so that when the women came back, they could have a bathing area, which was private, to have a bath and have water to wipe out all the concrete and cement from their bodies. And I also insisted on setting up a creche because I realized that they all had children. And what happens to children when they go to work? When I asked them what they did, a group of 7 women got together and they told me that 6 of us go to work, the 7th stays back, looks after all the children, and we share the 6 salaries, the daily salaries between the 7 of us. And I was thinking, look how women have to think and how they have to work just to survive. But I'm sorry to say that fewer and fewer women are now on sites. I think contractors are finding that they have to look after the women and the children. And now I insist on a small school, like in the Goa Institute of Management, we even had a small school classroom set up. And, that really worries me. And for me, it's more important that women in construction should not just be carrying cement on their heads, or they should actually be carrying, they should be painting, they should be masons, they should be welders, like they are in other parts of the world. And groups like Seva in Ahmedabad, they're teaching women masons. But I have worked a bit towards women painters to teach women how to paint, because they can do that quite well, and send them out. And then the company says, "Oh, but we have to worry about their safety." Well, so what? You have to worry about the safety. That's the least you can do. But see that they get work, send them out. So this is one part of my interest, to make sure they have proper shoes, proper helmets, proper jackets. Separately, my interest was women in architecture, which was the first conference that I did, like you said, in 2000. It was concentrated on South Asia. And I was shocked to find that the first woman architect from Pakistan, from Sri Lanka and all, had never even been invited to India. I mean, Yasmin Lehri had never come to India. She had never been invited to India. She just won the Jane Drew Prize. So it wasn't just India, it was the whole of South Asia that didn't realize the contribution of women. And during these 20 years, people would always come and ask me, "When is your next conference?" And I would say, "No, you guys do it. You're young people, you do it." And finally, Nandini, my daughter, and I, we've been working together now for the last almost 15 years. So there's a lot of support for me in the studio and the creative part and this art aspect also. And together we decided then to have the Women in Design, where we wanted to again celebrate, but internationally this time, women in all fields of design all over the world. And it was wonderful.
Fabulous. So Nandini has brought in a lot of very refreshing change and great things that have happened after she joined the practice. Good 10 years after she studied differently law and then, of course, design and architecture. Tell me, how has it been working with your daughter in the same firm? Is it also wonderful, as you just said, or are there, situations when you don't agree? And where does the buck stop?
Well, it has been wonderful. She, of course, mothers and daughters can argue, but they will always make up. So it's not like, we are yes sir, no sir, three bags full sir. We have discussions, debates, but we always understand and listen to each other. She has been great for the studio because it's a younger studio, naturally. I'm a senior citizen today. And I did worry about the studio. So for me, it's wonderful that she will bring in her own ideas, her own systems, her own type of creativity, and she can work with all the younger people whom we have in our studio today. And I can have a good time. I have a farmhouse outside Mumbai. So I can also go and look at the butterflies and the trees and the flowers when I want.
So you're enjoying the nature part at one point, and you're also actually enjoying the benefits of technology on the other side, because you see how technology has taken over our lives. There was a time I could not have thought of a home where I could have just, put a timer on my coffee machine in the morning or have my geyser going up, in the mornings without having to get out of bed to switch it on. And so many of these small things. What do you think? How are some examples of how technology has helped you in your personal life, especially from the home front?
When this pandemic hit, all of us, Nandini and her family and my husband and I, we all wanted to go to our farmhouse. So the first thing we did was lay a fiber optic cable so that we could have, the children were going to school. Nandini had her Zoom calls, I had mine, her husband had his, all of us. And then, of course, the iPads and the television. So, we laid a fiber optic cable and we have better Wi-Fi there than we have in our apartment in Mumbai.
So wonderful. So I think life is better at the farm where you can have the best of both.
Absolutely.
But you are the boss and the go-getter, architect, conservationist at work. But you are at the same time the mother, the grandmother, particularly at home. Which is a better role to play at this time? What are you enjoying more?
I think for me, I have never separated myself as a woman, as an architect, and as a grandmother. I don't think of myself as being divided into parts. This is who I am. And I can be a grandmother in the office too, to some of my people. And I can be an architect to my little grandson when he wants to talk about something. So there's no separation. This is who I am.
Fabulous. I think with that, I would say a big thank you. I would have loved to go on about learning more about you, your life, your practice. There's so much to take home from this interview. But till we meet again for the next conversation, the next chat, thank you so very much again.
Thank you, Lipika.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me for this. It's really been a pleasure. And I wish you all the very best. And I hope we will get a chance to meet at least in 2022.
Yes, definitely. But let us keep ourselves safe at this point of time. Yes. And just thought I'll just say a big thank you to, Havells for hosting this and giving us this platform so that we are able to broadcast this program to a very large audience. And they're very supportive about programs like this where we learn from lives of people like you who have been through a huge journey and are true inspiration to a whole lot of people. And we hope that we'll continue to inspire us in the times to come.
Thank you so much. All the best.
That was an amazing conversation with Brinda Somaya, the architect, the mother, the grandmother, and of course, a wonderful human being. We have so much to learn from her. I'm sure, like me, you've also had a lot of takeaways and things to ponder over what she told us and what she shared. This program is not over yet. Here is an interesting segment for all of you to win fabulous prizes. Only if you can answer the questions after seeing this short clip by Havells on smart homes.
Home is the starting place of love, hope, and dreams. No matter where life takes us, home is the place we come back to, time after time again. Our home represents who we are, and just as we like to see ourselves as smart, modern, tech-savvy, so also can our home. Smart devices make for smart homes, homes that work for us on our fingertips. Crabtree presents Smart H Automation Modules, easy to install wireless modules for your home automation. Lets you be in charge of your home in just 3 simple steps. Replace the existing switches with the new Smart H modules. Install the Crabtree app and run the app. And your home is now a smart home. A home that senses your needs. A home that dances to your tunes. So, upscale your living in no time from simple to smart. The Crabtree app also lets you take control of your home even when you're not home. Crabtree.
A very big thank you to you all who've been a lovely audience. And of course, a big, big thank you to Havells for creating this platform where we bring together fabulous people from different industries who share their thoughts, their vision, their ideas, their lives. And each word that they share with us is a learning. Till next time, on the Pioneers of the Smart World, goodbye and love you all.